Hello everyone. In the last video, we looked at the way to understand organizational structure, especially focusing on these three kinds of lenses. We are able to understand the way they divide the labor, the way they coordinate among divided labors, and we understand how organizations were structured in terms of centralization or decentralization, how the authority and responsibilities were shared, and how much formal the organizational structures may have. Uh, uh, how much formal organizational structure may be. So with those three kinds of lenses, we are able to understand the way they structure their organizations. Now today, we're gonna look at uh, the the hidden reasons behind the current appearance. Now, when it comes to public organizations, we all know that they are bureaucratic. When it comes to for-profit organizations, we know that they are focusing on efficiency and they are very much streamlined. And let me just And when it comes to public organizations, we emphasize the accountability and ethics and things like that. And that emphasis will change the way they structure their organizations. So these articles are related to uh, different aspects of public organizations, and this article is comparing public and private management, and obviously their focus and their unique characteristics result in different types of organizational structure. And range chapters 1, 3, and 4, when you read those, you will know that there is a reason. There are tons of reasons why public organizations are structured this way. So usually we blame the inefficiency of public organizations, but instead of blaming uh, those complaint related reasons, when we understand the reason behind the public organizational structure, we will kind of understand, that's why uh, we lose a lot of efficiency, rather we focus on effectiveness, and that's why we end up having this kind of organizational structure. So hopefully we can find the answers to many complaints and related reasons uh, by reading this chapter. Now, as you see in this slide, uh, back in the old days, classical organizational theorists argue that regardless of types of organizations, for-profit, non-profit, public organizations, all should have a certain kind of organizational structure. Okay, as you see over here, regardless of their situation, regardless of their environment, they argue that classical organizational theorists argue that they should have certain kind of structure, which will be the best kind of structure. Now, we change this notion and we begin to consider contingencies and unique situations surrounding organizations themselves. So depending on their different environment, depending on their different situations, organizations should have their unique type of structure. Okay, that's what we believe these days. So that is called contingency approach. Okay, so like in leadership, the theories, depending on the situation, in some situation, this type of leadership is recommendable. In other situation, other kind of leadership is recommendable. Basically, we take the same approach in organizational structure. Now, in contingency approach, we mainly look at three kind of determinant. Okay, so we're gonna review one by one briefly. I'm not going to hold you for a long period of time. You know, this video should be very limited. That's what I hope. And the strategy, let me begin with the strategy. Okay, the strategy, depending on the strategy that organizations may have, their consequential organizational structure will be different. For example, in for-profit organizations, they have a clear goal, maximizing profit, maximizing market share. Because of that, the strategy, which is the plan to achieve those goals, they streamline their organizational structure, period. Now, when we switch to public organizations, obviously we have different goals. So we are supposed to have different strategies. And because of that, we pay special attention to equity, special attention to effectiveness, special attention to resilience in providing services, things like that. So we are supposed to have a very different organizational structure. Okay. Now let me move on to structural imperatives. As the name indicates, structural imperatives are the unavoidable the factors that organization should follow in their organizational structure. So there are three main things in structural imperatives: size, tech, environment. Okay. So briefly speaking, as the organizational size is growing, obviously they have to rely more on hierarchy to have everything under control. If they adopting advanced technology, they're able to change their form of organization, like virtual kind of organizations may appear, and telecommuting can be possible, and that sort of ideas will change organization structure. Now, environment, it's not a simple concept, but generally speaking, if environment change, organizations are supposed to change. Otherwise, they are doomed to die. And that is the simple principle in organizational structure world. Now, let me jump to structural imperatives. Let me just go down to environmental uncertainty. So, many theorists in organizational structure argue that when there is low uncertainty and low and simple complexity, which is set one. Low uncertainty means they're in very steady environment, and simple complexity like in cell one, the easy example is cardboard container industry. They are pretty much centralized. They don't need to pay special attention to changing environment. So, excuse me. So compared to this, when you look at cell four, well, example of this is banking industry. They have to keep track of consistently changing environment. So they may set aside the resources and human resources for doing the job, and uh, the different kind of factors are affecting their banking industry. So the way they structure their organization is very different from the way the organization structure in cardboard container industry. Okay, so obviously environments have a huge effect on organizational structure. Now, however, however, regardless of understanding these two principles, strategy and structural imperatives, still the final decision about switching to different kind of a structure is human. Okay, so if the people in charge do not buy in the idea of uh, remodeling organization structure, modifying organization structure, then that's it. No change will be possible. So in the figure, we understand that usually managers who are affected by their personality, value system, and their own experience, they're going to make the decision. Okay, and excuse me, and the decision maker, like a city council members at the local government level, if they don't buy in the ideas proposed by city manager, we need to go to this way, like from the mayor council form of government to council manager form of government, because of a lot of those reasons, but city council member decision makers do not buy in that, that's it. They cannot expect any change after that. So strategic decision, the strategic choice will determine their organizational structure eventually. Now, these are, I'm just showing you the consequential organizational structure. For example, depending on their structural imperatives, depending on their strategic choice, some organizations decided to be more mechanistic. Others decided to be changing themselves into being more organic. Okay. Now, likewise, many organizations decided to introduce matrix design, as you already read, to save money, to save resources. Okay, so they decided to do that, but other organizations don't want to go in that way because of some downside of it. Now, let me just briefly touch Mintzberg's design, which is very interesting for me. Let me just uh, take a look at, let's just take a look at this figure. Now, when the size of organization is small enough, okay, usually the coordination or control can be possibly done by using direct supervision. Okay, everything can be easily under control. Now, regardless of the size of organizations, mutual adjustment is possible, but especially when organization is growing a little bit bigger, instead of solely relying on direct supervision, organizations tend to rely on their culture. Newcomers will understand what they are supposed to do, what they are not supposed to do. That sort of situation can be called mutual adjustment. I will know what I'm supposed to do by understanding public organizations that I'm working for and their cultures. So mutual adjustment will help control or coordinate among employees in an organization. Now, the, 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 the big problem will emerge when organizations are growing really big. Then, uh, while they try to take advantage of direct supervision and mutual adjustment, they also tend to introduce different kind of approach. First of all, some organizations tend to focus more on input control, like in prestigious programs uh, or prestigious universities, they have high standard uh, for uh, for recruiting prospective students because by doing that they know they are able to continue their tradition of success. All the organizations, they focus on output, like a quality control, like manufacturers. They emphasize quality control. So any product that did not pass quality control standard, they don't put that in the market. So they're able to maintain high quality by focusing on quality control. And some organizations, they focus on the processes themselves. Like in MPA program, let's say, regardless of your situation, where you are, some organizations may believe that by emphasizing certain standard process, they believe they're able to control the quality. They're able to maintain a certain level of their tradition and everything. So let's say, for example, in MPA program, regardless of your preference, we ask you to write a capstone paper, which is essential, which is unavoidable. In addition to many, by maintaining that essential portion of MPA program, we believe that's going to be beneficial to you. We believe we're able to maintain the successful tradition of our program. So, so that sort of idea, again, is what what is suggested by Lynchburg. Now, when we boil down the diverse factors related to organizational structure, this is what we found in the organizational structural world. First of all, regardless of sectors, regardless of kind of organizations, we believe that organizations tend to give high emphasis on their people. Human resources are very important, so they do their best to motivate their people. their employees, because they know that will lead to eventually that will lead to high performance, which is beneficial to organizations. And also they do their best to get the feedback from their client or customers, and they try to address their different demands. And also, global organization is not a avoidable trend, regardless of sectors. We all pay high attention to globalization. We pay attention to make a partnership with other countries. That sort of idea can be found in many organizations. And obviously, we all know that technology has huge impact on organizational structure, and environment has huge impact on organizational structure. So if we ignore this main trend, mainstream, if we ignore the structural imperatives, if we ignore the many arguments suggested by contemporary organizational theorists, we're going to be left behind. Although public organizations may be the last organization that will disappear, you may want to say that, but still, we may be left so behind. Okay, people's motivation will go down. They don't feel pride. The citizens that public organizations solve for, they continue to complain. All sorts of bad things can happen if we ignore this kind of argument and suggestions. So in this chapter, again, we try to understand why my organization is formed this way. Okay, so we found the reason in these structural imperatives and in this big picture of determinant to organizational structure. Although this is big picture approach, but still this will help us understand why we have this kind of structure, why it is not easy to switch to other kind of organizational structure, why public organizations now have their own structure this way, why we should not just criticize public organizations because of this and that reason. Okay, as Hal Rainey argued in his book, which is the chapters you are supposed to read, public organizations may be doing their best in their own environment, in their own contingencies. So we may need to be more generous understanding public organizations once we understand the reason behind their structures. Okay, I will see you next time. Thank you. Hope you guys are well.